That cold Monday morning email erased 25 years of my career in 12 words. Your position has been eliminated effective immediately. They didn't even have the courage to say it to my face. At 50, I was suddenly invisible, discarded like outdated software. I thought I'd disappear into silence, let them win. But silence, I discovered, can be the deadliest weapon of all. They never imagined a middle-aged woman they'd thrown away would transform her humiliation into a $75 million reckoning. This is how I turned their ageism into their apocalypse. My name is Margaret Collins, Maggie to those who once pretended to care. And until that Monday, I'd been Senior Director of Strategic Operations at Stratton Dynamics for 25 years. I'd arrived at my corner office at 6:47 a.m., as always, my Starbucks dark roast still steaming, the Denver skyline painted gold by the rising sun. The city looked beautiful from the 32nd floor, deceptively peaceful. The email arrived at 7:03 a.m. Subject line: Organizational restructuring, action required. My fingers hovered over the mouse for a moment. In 25 years, I'd seen enough corporate euphemisms to recognize an execution order, but nothing prepared me for the surgical coldness of those 12 words buried in the third paragraph. Your position has been eliminated effective immediately. I read it 3 times. The words didn't change. Around me, the office hummed with its usual Monday morning energy. Through the glass walls of my office, walls I'd earned through decades of 60-hour weeks, I watched my team settling in. Jessica, barely 25, was adjusting her standing desk. Brad, fresh from Wharton, laughed at something on his phone. None of them looked up. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. I reached for my access card, swiped it against the reader on my desk. The light flashed red, already dead, ready. They'd killed my digital existence before I'd even finished my coffee. The email continued with manufactured sympathy. This decision reflects our commitment to technological adaptation and agile workforce optimization. Translation: You're too old to keep up. They didn't say it outright. HR had trained them better than that. But the subtext screamed from every carefully chosen word. At 50, I'd become a liability, a relic in their shiny new world of disruption and innovation. I stood, my heels clicking against the polished concrete floor. Industrial chic, they called it, though I remembered when offices had actual warmth. Through the glass, I saw Tom Chen from IT approaching with a security guard. Tom, whom I'd hired 8 years ago when he was just a nervous kid from Berkeley. He couldn't meet my eyes. Maggie, he said, stopping at my door's threshold. I need to collect your laptop, phone, and access cards. The security guard, younger than my daughter, shifted uncomfortably. His hand rested on his radio like I might suddenly turn violent, as if 25 years of building this company's infrastructure could explode into rage in an instant. I handed over the devices. Each one felt like surrendering a piece of myself. The laptop containing thousands of files I'd created, strategies I'd developed, problems I'd solved at 2 a.m. when the young guns were out drinking. The phone with contacts I'd cultivated over decades. The access cards that had opened every door in this building until now. There's a box on your assistant's desk, Tom mumbled. For your personal items, you have 15 minutes. 15 minutes to pack up a quarter century. I moved through the ritual of corporate death with mechanical precision. The photos from my desk, Sophie's graduation, our last family vacation before the divorce, the awards gathering dust on the shelf, suddenly meaningless acrylic and engraved lies. The coffee mug Sophie had made in 3rd grade that said, "World's Best Mom," in uneven purple letters. My colleagues, former colleagues, kept their heads down, suddenly fascinated by their screens. Only Linda from accounting dared to glance up, her eyes wide with the fear that every employee over 45 now carried. She looked away quickly. Logan Pierce passed by, our 31-year-old CEO, all sharp suits and disruption rhetoric. He was discussing exciting new talent acquisitions with someone on his AirPods, his voice carrying the casual cruelty of someone who'd never been discarded. He walked past my office without a glance, as if I'd already been erased from the building's memory. The security guard escorted me to the elevator. The ride down 32 floors took 43 seconds. I counted each one. In the lobby, the receptionist, new, probably 22, smiled brightly and wished me a great day, oblivious to the box in my arms that contained the remnants of my professional existence. The January air hit me like a slap. I stood on the sidewalk, holding my pathetic box, watching the morning rush of young professionals streaming into the building, their whole lives ahead of them, confident in their indispensability. I wanted to warn them, someday, you too will become inconvenient. But I didn't. I walked to my car in silence, placed the box in the trunk with unnecessary care, and sat behind the wheel for a long moment. The parking garage was cold, fluorescent lights humming their industrial song. In the rearview mirror, I caught my reflection, 50 years old, silver streaks I'd stopped hiding, laugh lines that had apparently become liability lines. They thought they'd deleted me. They had no idea what they'd just created. The drive home to Littleton took 40 minutes that felt like hours. I didn't remember most of it. Muscle memory guided me through the familiar turns while my mind reeled between numbness and rage. The radio played something about the booming job market, how companies couldn't find enough talent. I turned it off. My house sat quietly on Maple Street, a modest 2-story colonial that suddenly felt enormous. The mortgage payment flashed in my mind, $3,200 a month. Sophie's tuition deadline loomed next week, $18,000 for spring semester at CU Boulder. My savings could cover maybe 6 months if I cut everything to the bone. I set the box on the kitchen counter and stared at it. Such a small container for 25 years. The silence was suffocating. No phone buzzing with urgent emails. No laptop pinging with meeting reminders. Just the tick of the wall clock I'd bought to make the kitchen feel homier after David left. 2:30 p.m. On any other Monday, I'd be leading the strategic planning meeting right now. I opened my laptop, my personal one, ancient by Stratton standards, and began the ritual of the newly unemployed LinkedIn update. How do you professionally say you've been thrown away? Exploring new opportunities after successful tenure at Stratton Dynamics. The lie tasted bitter. The job boards mocked me. Every posting wanted digital natives, fresh perspectives, innovative thinkers ready to disrupt. Code words I now understood perfectly. They wanted people who wouldn't remember when offices provided pensions, when loyalty meant something, when experience was an asset instead of a liability. Sophie called that evening. Hey Mom, just checking about the tuition payment. The bursar's office sent another reminder. I stared at the ceiling, phone pressed to my ear. It'll be there, sweetheart. Everything okay? You sound weird. Just a long day at work. The lie came easily. I couldn't burden her with this. Not during her junior year. Not when she was finally thriving after struggling freshman year. Oh, I also need money for the spring break geology field trip. It's required for my major. Like $800. Of course. My stomach clenched. I'll transfer it tomorrow. After she hung up, I sat in darkness. The house groaned and settled around me, every sound amplified in the emptiness. I pulled out a legal pad and began calculating. Mortgage, utilities, insurance, Sophie's expenses, food, gas. The numbers swam before me, refusing to balance. My phone stayed silent. 25 years of professional relationships, and not a single text asking if I was okay. I'd been deleted from group chats, removed from meeting invites, erased from existence as efficiently as my access card. At 3 a.m., unable to sleep. I opened my journal, a habit from therapy after the divorce, but the words wouldn't come. How do you document erasure? How do you write about becoming invisible? Instead, I wrote a single sentence. They think my silence is surrender. Days blurred together. I perfected the routine of pretending normalcy. Morning coffee, scanning job boards, sending applications into the void. Afternoon walks to avoid the neighbors' questions about why I was home. evening Netflix to drown out the sound of my savings depleting. The rejection emails were almost kind in their cruelty. Impressive background, but not quite the fit we're looking for. We've decided to move forward with candidates who better align with our dynamic culture. One recruiter, barely hiding her surprise during a phone screen, actually said, "Oh, I didn't realize you were so experienced." Linda from accounting finally texted on day 10. Heard about 3 more today, all over 45. They're calling it strategic realignment. We're all terrified. 3 more. The pattern was clear now. Stratton wasn't just discarding me, they were systematically erasing an entire generation of workers. We'd built that company, sacrificed weekends and marriages and time with our kids, only to be deemed obsolete by an algorithm of youth. I started writing everything down. Not in my journal, but in a document I titled Evidence. Dates, names, ages of those terminated. The pattern emerged like a sinister constellation. The average age of termination, 48. The average age of their replacements, 26. Anger crystallized into something harder, colder. They wanted me to disappear quietly, to be grateful for the 2 weeks of severance that was supposed to buy my silence. They counted on my shame, my middle-aged invisibility, my fear of seeming difficult or bitter. But silence, I realized, didn't have to mean surrender. Silence could be strategic. Silence could be a weapon, sharpened in darkness, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I opened a new browser tab and typed, Age Discrimination Lawyer, Denver. The first result, Jonathan Hale, specializing in workplace discrimination and class action suits. I stared at his website for a long time, finger hovering over the contact button. They thought they'd killed me professionally. They thought I'd fade away into suburban obscurity, another casualty of their glorious disruption. They had no idea what 25 years of strategic thinking could do when turned against them. I clicked contact and typed, I have a story about systematic age discrimination at a major corporation. I have evidence, and I am not the only victim. Then I waited, no longer in desperate silence, but in purposeful quiet, the kind that comes before a storm. Jonathan Hale called back within 2 hours. His voice carried the weight of someone who'd heard these stories before but hadn't grown numb to them. We met that afternoon at his downtown office, a refreshing contrast to Stratton's aggressive modernism, actual books on shelves, leather chairs that didn't prioritize form over comfort, coffee served in ceramic mugs instead of disposable cups with motivational quotes. "Tell me everything," he said, legal pad ready. I did. But more importantly, I showed him the pattern I'd been documenting. The terminations weren't random. They were surgical. Every department systematically purged of anyone who remembered the company before Logan Pierce's reign of disruption. "I need more than patterns," Jonathan said. "I need proof of intent." That's when I started digging deeper. Stratton's internal social network, Synergy, was still accessible through the web. A security oversight they'd probably consider beneath their notice. Using cached Google pages and archived posts, I began reconstructing the narrative. Logan's town halls where he praised fresh blood and hungry young talent. The HR presentations about cultural fit that somehow always featured stock photos of 20-somethings in open-plan offices. Then I found it. A leaked slide deck from a leadership retreat posted accidentally to a public folder before being yanked down. But the internet never forgets. Slide 23. Operation Refresh, reducing legacy costs through strategic human resource optimization. A graph showing salary savings by replacing tenured employees with emerging talent. The average salary differential, 60%. We weren't fired for incompetence. We were fired for being expensive. I started reaching out carefully to other alumni, Stratton's euphemism for the discarded. Coffee shops in suburbs became our gathering places, far from the trendy downtown spots where current employees might recognize us. Teresa Rodriguez was first to respond. 55, former head of IT infrastructure, replaced by a 27-year-old who called cloud migration revolutionary. as if Teresa hadn't been advocating for it for 3 years. She'd been documenting everything, too, including emails where Logan questioned whether older team members could adapt to Agile methodology. Robert Winters joined next. 62, former CFO of the subsidiary division, forced out for lacking innovative financial vision. The reality? He'd questioned Logan's aggressive expansion strategy, warning about unsustainable burn rates. His replacement, fresh from Stanford, approved every expenditure without question. Elaine Murphy was the anger we all felt but contained. 48, former marketing director, told her position was being reimagined for digital natives. She'd increased market share by 30% over 5 years. But apparently, understanding TikTok mattered more than understanding markets. We met at a diner off Highway 285, the kind where coffee came in bottomless cups and no one from Stratton would ever venture. 4 professionals with over a century of combined experience, reduced to plotting in vinyl booths. They're counting on us being isolated, Elaine said, spinning her coffee cup. Too proud to talk, too scared to fight. I've been thinking about the Synergy archives, Teresa added. Before they cut my access, I noticed something. There's a private channel called Project Lighthouse. Only C-suite access. Robert pulled out his phone. My assistant, former assistant, she's still there, 26, safe for now. She says Project Lighthouse is all they talk about in leadership meetings. I watched them. These accomplished professionals reduced to intelligence gathering through whisper networks and sympathetic former subordinates. The waste of it all, decades of institutional knowledge dismissed because we remembered dial-up modems. Jonathan Hale, I said quietly. The lawyer. He's interested, but we need more than suspicion. We need smoking guns. Teresa smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from any of us. I might have something. Before they terminated me, I set up an automatic backup of my emails to a personal server, security protocol I implemented years ago. Actually, they never revoked it because they probably forgot it existed. She pulled out a laptop that looked ancient by Stratton standards, but hummed with quiet efficiency. I've been getting copies of emails sent to my old address. They're using it as a distribution list, thinking it's dead. We crowded around the screen. Email after email about Project Lighthouse. Budget allocations for workforce transformation. Metrics about age distribution optimization. And then, the piece that made us all stop breathing. An email from Logan to the board. By Q3, we'll have reduced our median employee age from 42 to 31. The salary savings alone will offset the severance costs within 8 months. More importantly, our investor deck will show a company built for the future, not weighed down by legacy thinking. We weren't employees who'd been terminated. We were line items that had been deleted. Forward everything to Jonathan, I said. But encrypt it first. Use Signal for any discussion. They may be young, but they're not stupid. If they catch wind of this, they'll bury us. Robert finished. But looking around that table, at faces marked by experience Stratton had deemed worthless, I saw something they'd never factored into their algorithms. We'd survived mergers, recessions, technological revolutions, and corporate upheavals. We'd navigated office politics when Logan was still in elementary school. They thought age made us weak. They forgot it also made us patient, strategic, and absolutely nothing left to lose. We're not just going to sue them, I said, my voice steady with newfound purpose. We're going to expose them. Every analyst, every investor, every client will know what Stratton really means by innovation. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as we raised our coffee cups in the world's saddest toast. But in that moment, in that forgotten diner, we weren't victims anymore. We were an army they never saw coming. The weeks that followed transformed us from scattered victims into something more dangerous, organized resistance. We met weekly, rotating locations like an underground cell. Teresa's living room in Highlands Ranch, Robert's study in Cherry Hills, Elaine's kitchen table in Lakewood. My house became command central, the dining room wall covered with timelines, organizational charts, and a growing web of connections that looked like a conspiracy theorist's dream board. Except it wasn't conspiracy, it was evidence. More people found us through whispers and careful recruiting. Janet from legal, terminated at 51 for not aligning with modern legal strategies. Marcus from sales, 53, whose million-dollar client relationships apparently meant nothing compared to his gray temples. David from engineering, not my ex-husband, though the irony wasn't lost on me, 49, replaced by someone who called Python vintage coding language. We were 12 now. The Stratton 12. Elaine called us with bitter humor. A jury of the discarded. We need to be smart about this, Robert said during one evening meeting, his financial brain calculating odds. Logan Pierce isn't just some startup kid anymore. He's got backing, private equity, board members who golf with senators. Then we need leverage, I replied, staring at our evidence wall. Something that makes fighting us more expensive than settling. That's when Marcus mentioned his wife's cousin, Jennifer, who worked at the Denver Post. She covers corporate malfeasance. This is exactly her beat. No media yet, Jonathan Hale had warned us repeatedly. Once you go public, they'll unleash their legal team. We need the filing to be airtight first. But we could prepare. Document everything. Create a narrative so compelling that when we did go public, Stratton's PR machine couldn't spin it away. Teresa had been busy with her backdoor email access. Look at this, she said one night, laptop glowing in my dimly lit dining room. They're accelerating Project Lighthouse, 43 more terminations scheduled over the next quarter, all over 45. The list of names made my stomach turn. People I'd worked with for years. Good people who devoted their careers to building Stratton into what it was. Sarah from procurement, who'd saved the company millions through strategic vendor negotiations. Tom from quality assurance, the irony of firing someone whose job was ensuring excellence. Miranda from customer relations, who knew every major client by name, their kids' names, their coffee preferences. We have to warn them, Janet said. We can't, I replied. Though it killed me. If we tip them off, Stratton will know we have access. They'll change tactics, destroy evidence. So we watched, helpless, as the execution dates approached. Each termination added to our documentation. Each discarded career became another piece of evidence. We were building our case on the professional graves of our colleagues. The guilt ate at me. Nights when Sophie called from Boulder, chattering about her classes and internship applications. I wanted to scream, don't trust them. Don't give your loyalty to companies that will delete you the moment you cost too much. But I couldn't poison her optimism. Not yet. Jonathan Hale was building the legal framework. Class action, he explained. Age discrimination, systemic pattern of termination, hostile work environment. But we need the smoking gun. The email about salary savings is good. But a jury needs emotion, not just economics. That's when Elaine remembered the holiday party. Logan's keynote, someone must have recorded it. December's holiday party, just 2 months ago. Logan, drunk on success and actual champagne, giving his vision for the future speech. I remembered standing in the back, watching him command the room with his boyish charm and revolutionary rhetoric. Now I wondered what else he'd said. Marcus found it. His former assistant had posted Instagram stories from the party. There, in a shaky phone video with the caption, CEO vibes, was Logan at his most honest. The future of Stratton isn't in the conference rooms with outdated executives counting their stock options. It's here, with you. The hungry generation that actually understands disruption. In 5 years, this company will be entirely transformed. No more dead weight from the past dragging us down. Just pure, young innovation. The crowd, all under 35, had cheered. Dead weight. That's what 25 years of experience had become. We need more, I said. We need him on record specifically about age. Robert leaned forward. The board meetings, they're recorded for compliance. My assistant says they keep them on a secure server. That's impossible to access, Teresa said. then paused. Unless... She smiled. The kind of smile that reminded us she'd built Stratton's entire IT infrastructure. I implemented the security system, and like any good engineer, I built in redundancies. Backups of backups. They might have locked me out of the front door, but I know where all the windows are. It would be risky, possibly illegal, definitely unethical by their standards. They terminated us for being old, Elaine said quietly. They destroyed our careers, our financial security, our professional identities. You want to talk about ethics? We all looked at each other. 12 professionals who'd played by the rules our entire careers, who'd believed that hard work and loyalty meant something, who'd trusted the system until the system betrayed us. Do it, I said. Teresa nodded. Give me a week. As the meeting broke up, Robert pulled me aside. You know, once we file, there's no going back. They'll come after us personally. Background checks, social media history, anything to discredit us. I thought about my quiet life, my predictable suburban existence, my careful maintenance of professional dignity even in termination. Let them come, I said. I've got nothing left to hide and nothing left to lose. But that wasn't entirely true. I had Sophie, I had my house, I had whatever fragments of reputation remained, and I was about to risk it all on the hope that justice still meant something in corporate America. Jonathan Hale's office became our war room. The conference table disappeared under boxes of evidence, printed emails, transcribed recordings, and statistical analyses that Robert had compiled showing the systematic nature of Stratton's age purge. The normally composed lawyer looked at our mountain of documentation with something between admiration and concern. This is enough for a lawsuit, he said. But if you want to win, really win, not just get a settlement with an NDA attached, we need something explosive. Teresa had been working on accessing the board recordings. She'd managed to retrieve some cached files, but the smoking gun remained elusive. Meanwhile, more alumni reached out. We were now 23 strong, with combined experience of over 500 years at Stratton. We file next Monday, Jonathan announced. Federal court. The filing will be public record. Once that happens, expect everything to change. That weekend, I sat Sophie down during her visit home. She needed to hear it from me before it became public. Mom, you were fired 2 months ago and didn't tell me? Her face cycled through hurt, anger, and confusion. I didn't want to worry you during school. So you've been pretending everything's fine while secretly building a lawsuit? She stood, pacing my kitchen like I used to pace conference rooms. This is going to be everywhere. My professors, my classmates, everyone will know. I know, sweetheart. But what they did was wrong. She stopped pacing, looking at me with eyes that suddenly seemed older. Mom, do you remember when Dad left? You told me that sometimes standing up for yourself is the only way to keep your dignity. I nodded, throat tight. Then burn them to the ground. Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Teresa. I found it. Board meeting, January 15th. You need to hear this. I drove to her house through empty streets. In her home office, surrounded by servers she'd built herself. They can take my job, but not my skills. She played the audio file. Logan's voice filled the room. The older generation just doesn't get it. They're scared of AI, they resist automation, they want their corner offices and scheduled lunch breaks. Our investors want to see a lean, aggressive company, not a retirement home for people who think knowing Excel makes them tech-savvy. Board member's voice. The legal risks. Logan. What risks? They're all too old and tired to fight. They'll take their pathetic severance and disappear. Maybe play some golf, complain about millennials at country clubs. They don't have the energy or resources for legal battles. Another voice. The 45 to 60 demographic represents 60% of our institutional knowledge. Logan laughed. Actually laughed. Institutional knowledge? You mean institutional resistance. Every employee over 45 costs us 30% more than a new hire and produces 40% less innovation. It's simple math. We're not running a charity for the middle-aged. Teresa stopped the recording. We sat in silence. He's not just discriminating, I said finally. He's gloating about it. There's more, Teresa said. Emails discussing which departments to target first, PowerPoints about age optimization. They actually created an algorithm to identify high-salary, high-age employees for termination. We copied everything onto encrypted drives, multiple copies, cloud backups. If Stratton tried to destroy evidence, we'd have redundancies they couldn't reach. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, pathetic fallacy at its finest. Jonathan filed the lawsuit at 9 a.m. By 9:30, his phone was ringing nonstop. Stratton's legal team, he said, putting them on speaker. They want to meet. The voice on the phone was crisp, professional, and utterly without emotion. Mr. Hale, your clients are making serious allegations. We'd like to discuss a resolution before this becomes unnecessarily public. It's already public, Jonathan replied. Federal filing, check Pacer. A pause. We're prepared to offer a settlement, generous severance packages for all plaintiffs, with standard confidentiality agreements. How generous? Jonathan asked, winking at us. 6 months' salary for each plaintiff. Elaine actually laughed. Robert shook his head. Janet muttered something unsuitable for court records. No, I said loudly enough for the phone to pick up. We're not disappearing quietly, not this time. Who is this? The voice demanded. Someone you thought was too old and tired to fight. The line went dead. By noon, Jennifer from the Denver Post had the story. By 2 p.m., it was trending on LinkedIn. By evening, Stratton Agegate was viral. The messages started flooding in. Former employees from across the country sharing similar stories. Current employees, young ones, expressing shock at what their company had been doing. Investors asking pointed questions about discrimination liability. But Stratton's PR machine was powerful. By Tuesday morning, they'd crafted their narrative. We were disgruntled former employees who couldn't adapt to modern business practices. Logan gave an interview to TechCrunch portraying himself as a visionary being attacked by those resistant to change. They want a war, Robert said, watching Logan's smooth performance on YouTube. They think we'll fold under pressure. I looked around the conference room at my fellow plaintiffs, teachers of courses Logan had never taken, builders of systems he'd never understand, keepers of knowledge he'd dismissed as obsolete. Then let's give them one, I said. Teresa, release the board recording. She smiled and hit send. Within an hour, Logan's voice admitting to systematic age discrimination was everywhere. The internet, it turned out, had parents and grandparents too. The backlash was swift and brutal. But we'd just lit a match. The real fire was yet to come. The media explosion was unlike anything I'd experienced in 25 years of corporate communications. My phone became unusable. Reporters, old colleagues, distant relatives who'd seen the news. Sophie fielded calls at her dorm from journalists pretending to be students. Robert hired a security service after photographers camped outside his house. We'd wanted attention, but this felt like standing in front of an avalanche we'd triggered ourselves. Logan Pierce went on the offensive, a full-court press across every media platform, painting us as bitter relics unable to accept a changing world. He appeared on CNBC looking earnest in his $3,000 hoodie. Yes, that's a thing. Talking about innovation resistance and the courage to transform. These former employees were offered generous packages, he said, staring directly into the camera. But instead of gracefully transitioning, they're trying to destroy a company that's creating jobs for the next generation. The interviewer, barely 30 herself, nodded sympathetically. So you deny the discrimination allegations? I deny that optimizing our workforce for the future is discrimination. We're a technology company. We need people who speak the language of tomorrow, not yesterday. Elaine threw her coffee mug at her TV. She texted me the photo of the coffee-stained screen with the caption, "Bill me for a new TV when we win." But Logan had miscalculated. The board recording Teresa had released was spreading faster than his PR team could spin. Late-night comedians picked it up. "Too old and tired to fight," one joked. "Has this guy met my grandmother? She once returned a sweater to Macy's from 1987 with no receipt and got store credit." Then Jennifer from the Denver Post dropped her investigative piece. 6 months of research, interviews with 47 former Stratton employees across 5 years, all showing the same pattern. But the real bombshell was her discovery of the algorithm Teresa had mentioned, literally called Project Lighthouse, Illuminating the Path to Youth. The algorithm assigned scores based on age, salary, and cultural fit metrics that mysteriously correlated with graduation dates. Anyone scoring below a threshold was flagged for transition opportunity. They'd automated age discrimination. Current Stratton employees began leaking to Jennifer. The young workforce Logan praised publicly was privately terrified. "We know we're next," one anonymous source said. "The moment we hit 35, 40, we'll be optimized too. We're not colleagues, we're temporary assets with expiration dates." Jonathan Hale was masterful in managing the legal strategy. "We don't settle for anything that includes NDAs," he told Stratton's expanding legal team. "Full transparency or full trial." That's when they tried to get dirty. The opposition research started appearing in carefully placed stories. "My divorce, suddenly I was unstable. Robert's bankruptcy from medical bills 10 years ago. Financially irresponsible. Elaine's anxiety medication, mentally unfit for high-stress environments." They even found a DUI from Teresa's college years, 35 years ago. Margaret Collins, A Pattern of Professional Instability. That was my favorite hit piece. Published on a tech blog that supposedly covered innovation, but somehow found time to dive into my performance reviews from 2015. Sophie called, crying. "Mom, they're saying horrible things about you online." "I know, baby. My roommate's boyfriend works at a startup. He says you're becoming like a symbol or something. Half the people think you're a hero, half think you're destroying American innovation. What do you think?" A pause. "I think my mom taught me to fight bullies, even when they wear hoodies and run billion-dollar companies." The settlement offers kept coming, each more desperate. 10 million split among all plaintiffs, then 15, 20, all requiring silence. "They're scared," Jonathan observed. "Discovery starts next week. They have to open their books, their emails, everything." That's when Logan made his biggest mistake. He went on Joe Rogan. 3 hours of unfiltered Logan Pierce, confident in that particular tech bro way that confuses arrogance with vision. By hour 2, relaxed and feeling safe with a sympathetic host, he let his guard down. "Look, I'm not saying older workers have no value," he said, leaning back. "But let's be honest, you can't teach a 50-year-old to think like a 25-year-old. Their brains are literally different, less plastic, less adaptable. It's not ageism, it's neuroscience." Joe pushed back slightly. "But experience has to count for something?" Logan laughed. "Experience? You mean knowing how things used to be done? That's exactly what holds companies back. Every industry disrupted in the last decade was disrupted by people under 30. You know why? Because they didn't know what was impossible. These older employees, they're walking museums. Interesting to visit, but you wouldn't want to live there." The clip went viral within hours. Walking museums trended globally. AARP issued a statement. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission opened a formal investigation, but the moment that broke everything open came from an unexpected source. Logan's own mother. Patricia Pierce, 62, retired marketing executive, posted on LinkedIn. "I'm watching my son destroy lives of people my age, dismissing decades of experience as worthless. I raised him better than this. Or thought I did. To everyone affected by Stratton's policies, I'm sorry. To my son, I'm ashamed. You've become everything you once said you'd fight against." The internet exploded. Logan tried damage control, claiming his mother didn't understand modern business, that she was being emotional. Which only made things worse. Now he wasn't just ageist. He was publicly dismissing his own mother as an emotional, uninformed older woman. Stratton's stock price dropped 12% in 3 days. The board called an emergency meeting. Jonathan's phone rang at 11 p.m. They want to talk. Really talk this time. We gathered in his conference room at midnight, exhausted but wired on adrenaline and vindication. They're offering $35 million, Jonathan said. No NDAs, public apology, policy changes. Independent oversight of hiring and firing practices. It was more than we'd dreamed. But looking around the room, I realized it wasn't about the money anymore. It had never been about the money. It's not enough, I said. Everyone turned to stare. Logan Pierce needs to go. He's the poison. As long as he's there, nothing really changes. Jonathan whistled low. You want to demand the CEO's resignation? I want justice. Real justice, not just a check. One by one, the others nodded. 23 discarded employees refusing to disappear. Tell them 40 million policy changes, oversight, and Logan Pierce resigns. Robert said, or we go to trial. Jonathan smiled. You know, when you first came to me, I thought this would be a quiet settlement, maybe $1 million or $2 million. Everyone signs NDAs. Life goes on. We're too old to be quiet, Elaine said. And apparently, I added, thinking of Logan's own words, not too tired to fight. The courtroom in downtown Denver felt like a coliseum. Every seat filled, overflow rooms with video feeds, media passes distributed like golden tickets. The United States District Court for the District of Colorado had become ground zero for a generational battle playing out across corporate America. Logan Pierce entered surrounded by a phalanx of lawyers in identical black suits, their youth as conspicuous as their designer briefcases. He wore his signature hoodie under a blazer, his consultant's attempt at making him look respectfully innovative. His jaw was clenched, his boyish charm replaced by something harder. The last 3 months had aged him, ironically enough. We sat behind Jonathan, all 23 of us in our best professional attire, the clothes we'd once worn to board meetings and presentations, pulled from closets where they'd hung like artifacts of our former lives. I caught Logan's eye as he passed. He looked away first. Judge Martha Henderson, 67 years old and appointed during the Obama administration, commanded the room with quiet authority. The irony of her age wasn't lost on anyone. This case, she began, represents more than a dispute between former employees and their employer. It speaks to fundamental questions about the value of experience, the nature of discrimination, and the kind of society we choose to be. Stratton's lead attorney, Harrison Blackwell, flown in from New York at probably $2,000 an hour, stood first. Your Honor, Stratton Dynamics is a technology company competing in a global marketplace that demands innovation and agility. The plaintiffs were not terminated due to age, but due to shifting business requirements and performance metrics. Performance metrics that mysteriously correlated with age. Judge Henderson's tone was neutral, but her raised eyebrows spoke volumes. Correlation is not causation, Your Honor. Jonathan rose slowly, deliberately. He'd refused their settlement offer of $40 million, going all in on public trial. Your Honor, we will demonstrate not just correlation, but deliberate, systematic discrimination. We have emails, recordings, and documents showing Stratton Dynamics created an algorithm specifically designed to identify and eliminate older workers. Allegedly? Blackwell interjected. No. Jonathan smiled. Documented. Exhibit A, Your Honor. The first witness was Teresa. She explained the algorithm in devastating technical detail, translating code into human impact. The cultural fit score was weighted by factors that included years since graduation and technological nativity, which was determined by whether someone had a TikTok account. A TikTok account? Judge Henderson asked. Yes, Your Honor. Having one added points to your score, not having one subtracted points. My 28 years of building their IT infrastructure counted for less than a 15-second dance video. The gallery murmured. Logan shifted in his seat. Robert testified next, walking through the financial impact. Stratton saved approximately $47 million annually by replacing experienced employees with entry-level hires. But they lost over $300 million in institutional knowledge, client relationships, and failed projects led by inexperienced teams. Objection? Blackwell called. Speculation? I ran their financial division for 15 years. Robert replied calmly. It's not speculation. It's math. Would you like to see the spreadsheets? Day 2 brought current Stratton employees, subpoenaed and terrified. A 27-year-old programmer admitted she'd been instructed to document every mistake made by team members over 40. A 30-year-old HR representative broke down crying, describing the transition lists she was forced to create. But the explosive moment came when Jonathan called Logan Pierce himself. Logan took the stand with the confidence of someone who'd given 1,000 presentations. But this wasn't his stage, and Jonathan Hale wasn't his audience. Mr. Pierce, do you recognize this document? The Project Lighthouse presentation appeared on the courtroom screens. It's a strategic planning document. Please read slide 23. Logan hesitated. Optimizing human resources for maximum innovation potential. Continue. Analysis shows employees age 45 plus show 34% lower adoption of new technologies. Is that analysis based on any scientific study? It's based on internal metrics. Such as? Logan's lawyer objected, but Judge Henderson overruled. Such as? Logan paused. Usage of internal collaboration tools. You mean Slack and the company TikTok channel? Laughter rippled through the gallery. Among other metrics. Jonathan pulled up another exhibit. Mr. Pierce, is this your voice? The board meeting recording played through the courtroom speakers. Logan's words about retirement homes and employees being too old and tired to fight filled the space. Several jury members visibly recoiled. That was taken out of context. What context makes comparing your employees to residents of a retirement home acceptable? Logan's composure cracked. You don't understand the pressure we're under. Investors demand growth, innovation, disruption. You can't disrupt with people stuck in their ways. People like your own mother? Objection, Blackwell shouted. Withdrawn. But the damage was done. Jonathan continued methodically. Email after email. Recording after recording. Logan's words became a noose tightening around Stratton's defense. Then Jonathan played his final card. Mr. Pierce, are you familiar with Stanley Morrison? Logan looked confused. No. He's your newest board member, brought in last month to help with crisis management. He's 71 years old. The courtroom went silent. That's different. How? He brings strategic experience. Experience? I thought experience was, in your words, knowing how things used to be done, which holds companies back. Logan's face reddened. Board positions are different from operational roles. So age discrimination is acceptable for workers, but not for board members? I'm not discriminating. Mr. Pierce, you created an algorithm called Project Lighthouse that assigned scores based on age-related factors. You held meetings about age optimization. You called employees over 45 dead weight. If that's not discrimination, what would you call it? Logan snapped. I'd call it running a modern company. You want us to keep every dinosaur who can't adapt. You want us to fail because we're too worried about hurt feelings. This is business, not a charity. The courtroom erupted. Judge Henderson gavelled for order. No further questions, Jonathan said quietly. As Logan stepped down, his PR handler whispered urgently in his ear. But the damage was done. Every major outlet had the quote, "Dinosaurs who can't adapt." The defense tried to recover. They brought in experts on innovation, testimonies about the need for digital natives, statistics about tech industry demographics. But it all felt hollow after Logan's explosion. Closing arguments were scheduled for the next day. That night, my phone rang. Jonathan. Stratton's board just called. They want to settle $75 million. Logan's resignation, full policy reform, public apology. I sat in my dark kitchen, thinking about the journey from that cold Monday morning email to this moment. Take it to the others, I said. Let them decide. We met at the diner where this had all really begun. 23 people whose lives had been upended, sitting with coffee and pie, deciding whether $75 million and a CEO's resignation was enough justice. It's not just about us, Elaine said. It's about everyone who comes after. The policy changes would be legally binding, Robert added, monitored by federal oversight. Teresa pulled up her laptop. Logan's already being roasted online. Dinosaur CEO is trending. His own investors are calling for his resignation. We voted, unanimous. One condition, I said. The settlement is public. No hiding the amount, no hiding the terms. Everyone needs to know what age discrimination costs. The Denver federal courthouse steps were packed with media for what should have been day 4 of the trial. Instead, we stood together, 23 former Stratton employees, as Jonathan Hale read the settlement agreement. Stratton Dynamics has agreed to pay $75 million to settle allegations of systematic age discrimination. Additionally, CEO Logan Pierce will resign effective immediately, and the company will implement comprehensive anti-discrimination policies under federal oversight for the next 5 years. The questions came in a tsunami. I'd been selected to speak for the group, my voice steady despite the magnitude of the moment. This was never about revenge, I said into the cluster of microphones. It was about dignity, about recognizing that experience has value. That wisdom earned over decades can't be replaced by an algorithm. That being 50 doesn't make you obsolete. What's next for you? A reporter shouted. I looked at my fellow plaintiffs, my friends now, forged in the fire of shared injustice. Teresa had already received 3 job offers from companies wanting her expertise. Robert was starting a consulting firm specifically for age-diverse companies. Elaine was writing a book about corporate ageism. We're going to keep working, I said. Because despite what Logan Pierce believed, we're not too old or too tired to contribute. We're just experienced enough to fight back when someone tries to throw us away. The settlement made headlines globally. The EEOC used our case as a precedent for 3 other investigations. Congress held hearings on age discrimination in tech. Logan Pierce disappeared from public view, his social media accounts dark, his disruption gospel silenced. But the real victory came in smaller moments. Sophie called the day after the settlement. Mom, my internship supervisor just announced they're creating a mentorship program pairing young employees with experienced professionals. She specifically mentioned your case. Former colleagues still at Stratton reached out. The interim CEO, Patricia Morrison, 58, with 30 years of experience, had immediately reversed Project Lighthouse. The company was rehiring some of the terminated employees as consultants, at premium rates. They need us. Teresa laughed during our celebration dinner. Turns out their 20-something replacements didn't know how to handle the legacy systems that still run 70% of operations. 6 months later, I stood in my new office. Not a corner office with a view of Denver, but something better. My own consulting firm specializing in age discrimination cases. The walls were covered with thank you letters from workers across the country who'd used our precedent to fight their own battles. The Wall Street Journal ran a profile. The $50 million email, How Margaret Collins Turned Termination into Transformation. They got the amount wrong, but I didn't correct them. The exact figure mattered less than what it represented. Logan Pierce eventually resurfaced, naturally. A podcast about failing forward and learning from mistakes. He never mentioned age discrimination directly, talking instead about misaligned values and growth opportunities. Silicon Valley has a short memory for its prodigal sons. But we had changed something. Companies now thought twice before implementing workforce optimization that mysteriously targeted older employees. HR departments added age discrimination training. Some tech companies even began advertising their age-diverse teams as a strength, not a liability. Still, the fight wasn't over. It never really is. Every day brought new stories of workers discarded for the crime of experience. But now they had a playbook, a precedent, and most importantly, proof that silence wasn't their only option. I kept a photo on my desk from the courthouse steps. 23 people who refused to disappear quietly. Our hair might have been gray, our faces lined with years of experience, but our spines were straight and our heads held high. Next to it sat the printed email that had started everything. That cold Monday morning message that thought it could erase 25 years with 12 words. I'd had it framed with a small plaque beneath. They thought silence meant surrender. They thought wrong. Because here's what Logan Pierce and his algorithm never understood. We weren't just employees to be optimized or deleted. We were architects of the very companies trying to discard us. We'd survived recessions, bubble bursts, technological revolutions, and corporate restructuring that would have broken younger spirits. We'd learned to adapt before disruption became a buzzword, to innovate before it became a religion, to lead before leadership became a TED Talk. We were never dinosaurs. We were dragons. And dragons, it turns out, don't go extinct. They burn everything down and rise from the ashes. Sometimes I walked past Stratton's building, now bearing a new company slogan, Innovation Through Experience. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I didn't feel bitter anymore. I felt something better, vindicated. Because in the end, our silence hadn't been surrender. It had been strategy. We'd gathered our evidence, built our case, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. And when we did, we didn't just win a lawsuit. We changed the conversation. My phone buzzed with a text from Elaine. Another company just called, mass termination of everyone over 50. They want our help. I smiled and typed back, tell them we're not too old or too tired to fight. Because we weren't. We never had been. And now, everyone knew it. The storm that Monday morning started had become a revolution. And revolutions, I'd learned, aren't led by the young and fearless. They're led by those with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. In that small, simple office, surrounded by the evidence of battles won and fights still ahead. I spoke the words that had become my truth. Silence does not kill me. It is what killed them. Silence didn't kill me. It killed them. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your experiences and perspectives make these stories richer for everyone. Until next time, remember, your voice matters, no matter your age.